Welcome back to another Cyberpunk video. In this video I want to show you the best katana build and ultimately sort out the question which is the best katana in this game. Because there's a lot of confusion and a lot of different opinions about which is the best katana in this game, we will ultimately compare the damage output in different situations and also find the best builds for each of them. I've already narrowed down the list of possible best katanas to the following 3 contenders. The first on my list is the Zatori, which can be found on the rooftop in the Heist mission, and it has 500% critical damage. For most people, this is single-handedly the best katana in the game because of its insanely high critical damage. But since crit chance has been nerfed into the ground in patch 1.5, it would be surprising if this is really still the best. The second contender is the Jinchu-maru, which has an insane 100% crit chance whenever you enter Kerenzikov and also comes with an insane damage combo multiplier. So we will see how this weapon actually fares. This weapon can be acquired during the Takemura arc, it is a story item and it is not missable. The third weapon we will take a look at is the Scalpel. The Scalpel has an awesome 50% crit chance whenever you enter Sandevistan. But when you want to use this ability, it will also block the use of Berserk and Beast mode. This weapon can be acquired in the Big in Japan quest, which you get from the guy in the afterlife. Any other iconic blades or weapons don't have any special perks which makes them interesting, like the Byakko or Cocktail Stick. There's simply no damage increase, no crit chance increase, so I have sorted them out and we will only take a look at the top 3. If you want to get the most out of your blade builds, then definitely go for 20 in Reflex, because Reflex contains the blade skill, which should also be increased to level 20, and then at least go for 18 body, because 18 body unlocks the best cyberware which is required to get the most out of your blade build. In the body skill tree there's also a 20% melee damage increase, so don't forget this one. In the blade skill tree you should get the 30% damage with heavy attack, Judge, Jury, Executioner for 100% damage on full health enemies, and the float like a butterfly, which gives you 50% additional damage after dodging. And if you reach level 20 for blades, you can also get the 40% additional critical damage with blades from the finisher. For our test location, I selected a location in Charter Hill which contains around 8 enemies, and we can reload this location every time and have a neutral base for our tests. So we will always kill the same enemies from the same location and then compare the damage numbers with various different builds. The first weapon in our test setup will be the Zatori, which comes with a natural 500% critical damage, and with full blade perks we increase it to be over 604%. But since the crit chance is very low but very important for this weapon, we have to put 3 white knuckle mods to get the crit chance for this weapon to be 20%. Then we will add another 3 weak spot detection, which also gives 2% each for another 6% in our Kiroshi optics. Of course, this will sacrifice a lot of headshot damage, so it is better not being used with any other weapon. Then we will go for Berserk with Beast mode, 1 bruising Berserk and another devastating Berserk, which gives us another 15% crit chance. You cannot stack the Beast mode and you can also not stack the devastating Berserk. The only mods that are stackable are the scalable mods such as the bruising Berserk. When we now activate our Berserk, we get 42% from our character plus 20% from the weapon. That gives us 62% crit chance in total. For the testing of all 3 weapons, I will use a unified move, which always includes a dodge, and then I hit the enemy while the enemy is at full health. That ensures that I will get the 50% damage boost from dodging and evading an enemy attack, plus the 100% damage increase when the enemy is at full health. That way, the damage values for the Zatori have always been in the range between 120 and 130, and the non-crits have been around 14k. We got only 3 non-crits out of 10 hits, so that is a really good result. The next weapon we will test is the Jinchu-maru, and for that weapon we have to do a couple of changes on our build. We don't have to use the white knuckle mods in our weapon, so we can replace them with cold shoulder mods to increase our base DPS for the Jinchu-maru. Then we also don't have to go for weak spot, we can freely use trajectory analyzers, play with other weapons too, so there is no limitation on that. And we also don't need the crit chance mod in our cyberware, so we go for 1 beast mode and 2 bruising berserk in our Militech Berserk Mark V. Of course, for this weapon it is really important that we also use Kerenzikov in our cyberware and also the nanorelays that will increase the duration for Kerenzikov, because the Kerenzikov basically depends on dodging to make this weapon hit with 100% crit chance. The results for this weapon, however, were absolutely amazing. Please remember, we are using the same move, we dodge and then we hit the enemy with full health. All our results were hovering between 110 and 115k damage. This is almost as high as the Zatori, but we will never fail to make a critical hit, because when we dodge with the Jinchu-maru, we will always be at 100% crit chance thanks to Kerenzikov. But the most amazing thing is that the non-critical hits will be over 40,000 damage with the same move, where the Zatori only gets 13 or 14k. So it looks like the Jinchu-maru has kind of the upper hand versus the Zatori. But let's first take a look at the Scalpel before we come to any conclusion. The Scalpel comes with 50% increased crit chance whenever you use Sandevistan. So the crit chance is not an issue, and we are free to equip it with 3 cold shoulder mods. We also don't need crit chance in our Kiroshi, so we keep the trajectory analyzers, but for our cyberware we will go with the Quine Sandevistan Mark IV. We will equip it with 2 heat sinks and also with a crit damage modifier. If you actually thought the 2 other weapons were already amazing, then I hope you are prepared for this, because this weapon, even with 100% crit chance during Sandevistan, even with critting with using the same move, dodging and hitting your enemies at full health, Sandevistan may greatly help you in avoiding all your enemies' attacks, but it also dramatically cripples your damage. So I considered this test to be an absolute fail regarding the damage. But I gave the Scalpel a second chance and I changed the setup. We will no longer use Sandevistan with the Scalpel and then check our damage. Instead we equip 3 weak spot detection in our Kiroshi, and instead of the Sandevistan we also use the Militech Berserk Mark V. We equip Beast Mode, a Bruising Berserk and another crit chance mod. And with this setup, the damage values for the Scalpel instantly jump to be around 40 to 50,000 damage. The critical hits with the Scalpel with Berserk and Beast Mode are 3 times higher than with Sandevistan, and even the non-critical hits are outperforming the ones with Sandevistan. The non-crits with Berserk are even beating the critical hits with Sandevistan. So there is no real point in actually using this weapon with Sandevistan. And another thing I noticed is, whenever I played with the Scalpel, I instantly had these issues with the very slow animation when I dodge and also use Kerenzikov with it. And I never had these issues with Kerenzikov when I used the Zatori or the Jinchu-maru. So this might also be an additional issue that is tied to the Scalpel, making it an even worse weapon. So if we only look at the damage, then the crown for the best blade weapon in Cyberpunk 2077 can actually only go to either the Zatori or to the Jinchu-maru. And the Zatori got 88,400 average damage in our test, which is mainly because of the low non-crit values we had in our testing. Of course, if you invest heavily in the cold finishing perk, you can get the additional 40% crit chance and make this a 100% crit chance weapon, but that's a very huge invest. The average damage value for the Jinchu-maru was 102,900 damage. Even though we had 1 non-crit, which could have been totally avoided, we still have over 14,000 damage more than the Zatori. So this would qualify it to become the best blade weapon in Cyberpunk 2077, and the Jinchu-maru even enjoys very high non-crit values, which are even outperforming the values of the really bad Scalpel. So it's very obvious that the Scalpel only deals very low damage values, especially if you use it with Sandevistan, because your damage for blades comes from Berserk and Beast Mode. It doesn't come from any critical hits, it comes from Berserk and Beast Mode. So if you really want to play with blades in Cyberpunk, you have to go for Beast Mode. Of course there are reasons to play with a Sandevistan build, because it simply makes all your enemies stop moving. If you do that, you should rather use the Zatori or the Jinchu-maru, but not the Scalpel just because it has a bonus with it. And even the non-crit values are totally outperforming the Scalpel. So even if the Scalpel crits, the other 2 will just laugh about it. So you should actually never use the Scalpel and always go for one of the other 2. My personal favorite, of course, is the Jinchu-maru, because I can make it always crit and I use dodging a lot. If you are just playing this game casually and just want to run around and slash your enemies, then the Zatori is probably the best choice for those people. I hope you liked this video. Please let me know if you want to see more of these in-depth guides. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like, and see you next time.